Roman Reigns broke his silence after months of absence. Cody Rhodes made a shocking return to save Jey Uso. And Goldberg? He stormed back to flatten Gunther. To top it all off, Seth Rollins' new faction with Paul Heyman has finally been revealed, and it's dangerous. If you're not subscribed, you're missing history. Hit that button now before we get into the chaos. Last night, the WWE Universe witnessed a Raw main event that turned months of tension into one unforgettable eruption. After endless speculation, Roman Reigns finally addressed the Bloodline's collapse, but not before Cody Rhodes made a heroic comeback, charging in to save Jey Uso from a brutal beatdown by Seth Rollins. And just when it felt like the night had peaked, Goldberg's music hit. The arena exploded as the Hall of Famer returned, eyes locked on Gunther and the Intercontinental Championship. But behind the chaos, Paul Heyman made his move. He officially aligned Seth Rollins with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, forming what may be the most dangerous faction WWE has seen in years. The Bloodline civil war has hit a critical point. Jey Uso has turned his back on Roman. Solo Sikoa has vanished. And now, the tribal chief stands alone, until Cody Rhodes shocked everyone by evening the odds. But Roman isn't the only one under fire. Gunther's historic title reign is now under serious threat from the wrecking force of Goldberg. And then there's Paul Heyman. No longer the silent strategist, he stepped into the spotlight as the mastermind behind Rollins' new alliance. In one night, WWE's entire power structure flipped upside down. During Rollins' savage assault on Jey Uso, the lights dropped. Just as Rollins prepared to deliver the stomp, Cody Rhodes' music hit. The American Nightmare stormed the ring, cutting through the chaos for a show-stopping rescue. The crowd lost it as Cody stood tall beside Jey. An unlikely alliance formed in real time. Then it happened, Roman Reigns' music hit. The tribal chief walked down with fury in his eyes, delivering his first promo in months. "You think this is over?" Reigns growled. "The Bloodline doesn't die. It evolves." Before he could say more, Goldberg's entrance exploded through the speakers. The WCW legend marched to the ring, ignored Reigns entirely, and speared Gunther straight to the mat. As the crowd roared, Paul Heyman appeared on the ramp. Flanked by Rollins, Breaker, and Reed. The new faction stood united for the first time. If you're still not subscribed, now's the time. WWE is on fire, and this is just the beginning. Tap that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss what's next, whether it's Roman's next move, Goldberg's title hunt, or how far Seth Rollins' new faction is willing to go. You think this is over? That was the line. The one sentence. The one moment that changed everything. Roman Reigns, silent for months, walked down that ramp last night with fire in his eyes and fury in his voice. For 97 days, the so-called tribal chief disappeared. No interviews. No appearances. Not a single word. The WWE Universe had been left asking one question: where is Roman Reigns? And just when the silence had become deafening, he showed up. Not as a savior. Not as a leader. But as a man left behind by his own blood. What happened before, during, and after Roman's return was nothing short of chaos. We're talking about Cody Rhodes charging the ring in a heroic comeback to rescue Jey Uso from a brutal, career-threatening assault. We're talking about Goldberg, yes, Goldberg, storming back into WWE and destroying Gunther in a way no one expected or even thought possible. We're talking about Paul Heyman stepping out from the shadows, not to defend Roman Reigns, but to align himself with Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed, forming a new power faction that might be more dangerous than the Shield and more calculated than the Authority. This wasn't a wrestling show. This was a power shift, live and unfiltered. If you missed last night's Raw, you didn't just miss an episode. You missed the moment the WWE reset itself. And no, that's not hype. That's a fact. Let's break it down. There's a pattern in WWE: when things get quiet, chaos is brewing. Last night's Raw wasn't hyped as anything special. No massive build-up. No legend returns teased. Fans expected the usual, some decent matches, maybe a surprise or two, and then we move on. What they got was the most seismic storyline shift since WrestleMania. The main event was supposed to be straightforward. Seth Rollins vs. Jey Uso. A grudge match with personal stakes. Rollins had been targeting Jey for weeks, punishing him for turning his back on the Bloodline. Rollins saw Jey as weak, disloyal, vulnerable. And for a while, he was right. The match went from technical to savage fast. Rollins wasn't wrestling, he was dismantling Jey. Blunt kicks, stomps, chair shots. Not for show, but for pain. There was no referee trying to break it up. No backup. No family. No Solo. No Jimmy. No Roman. Jey Uso was alone. Then the lights cut out. The crowd held its breath. Not a sound. Just the low hum of the arena lights flickering back on. And then, wrestling has more than one royal family, the arena exploded. Cody Rhodes' theme hit, and he didn't walk down the ramp, he charged. No mic. No posing. Just fury. Just vengeance. Just fire. He slid into the ring and went straight at Rollins, landing blow after blow. The crowd didn't know whether to cheer, cry, or scream. They did all three. Within seconds, Rollins was out of the ring. Cody stood over Jey Uso, hand extended. Jey looked up. He took it. That's the kind of moment that echoes. You could feel the crowd realizing what just happened. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso, two men with no reason to trust each other, were now standing shoulder to shoulder. That alone would have been enough to headline the night. But then came Roman Reigns. His music hit like a thunderclap. The arena shook. Not from cheers, but from raw, unfiltered anticipation. Roman hadn't been seen since WrestleMania Fallout. No one knew what he would look like. What he would say. What he would do. He didn't smile. He didn't pose. He walked straight down that ramp with the weight of a crumbling dynasty on his shoulders. He entered the ring, eyes locked on Cody, then Jey. The crowd was split, boos, cheers, chants, disbelief. Then he took the mic. And he said it. You think this is over? The Bloodline doesn't die. It evolves. It wasn't a promo. It was a warning. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He wasn't pleading for loyalty. He was announcing his rebirth. But the night wasn't done. Just as Roman dropped the mic. Who's next? Goldberg's theme hit. And the arena exploded. Nobody predicted this. No leaks. No rumors. No build-up. Goldberg walked out in full gear, no nonsense. And this time, he wasn't just returning for nostalgia. He was coming for Gunther. The Intercontinental Champion had been dominant for over 600 days. Undefeated. Unshaken. Unbreakable. Goldberg walked past Roman. No eye contact. No acknowledgement. Just focus. He entered the ring, stared Gunther down. And speared him into oblivion. One move. One moment. One broken record reign. Gunther was left stunned. Goldberg roared. The fans lost their minds. WWE had just reset another storyline. And there was still more. Just as the dust was settling, Paul Heyman appeared on the ramp. He wasn't standing beside Roman. He wasn't looking at Cody. He was flanked by Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed, all in black. Heyman didn't say a word. He just smirked. That smirk said everything. The most dangerous manager in WWE history had just formed a new faction, and it didn't include Roman Reigns. The tribal chief was now alone. Cody and Jey were united. Goldberg was gunning for gold. And Heyman? He was playing chess while everyone else played checkers. In one episode, WWE delivered the return of its biggest modern-day star, Roman Reigns. A dramatic babyface save from Cody Rhodes. The shocking return of Goldberg. The first major challenge to Gunther's record-setting reign. A complete power pivot from Paul Heyman. The formation of a potentially era-defining faction. The collapse of one dynasty and the rise of several new ones. This wasn't a story twist, it was a tectonic shift. For fans, it was the moment Raw stopped being a weekly show and became a must-watch saga. For the roster, it was a reshuffling of the entire hierarchy. For Roman Reigns, it was a warning shot, his time on the throne is no longer guaranteed. WWE doesn't always get it right. But sometimes, they deliver a night so unforgettable, so perfectly timed, that you remember why you fell in love with wrestling in the first place. This was that night. And if this is how things start, imagine what's coming next. Roman's not done. Cody isn't backing down. Jey's rising. Goldberg's wrecking. And Heyman? He's building something ruthless. So if you're still not subscribed, now is the time. Hit that button, ring the bell, and drop your predictions in the comments. Who takes control of WWE from here? Because this isn't over. It's just getting dangerous. For nearly 100 days, Roman Reigns disappeared. No interviews. No cryptic tweets. No surprise run-ins. He simply vanished. For a man who had dominated WWE for over 3 years, headlining WrestleManias and defining the modern era of the company, this was more than a break. It was an exodus. Fans, critics, and even some of the locker room were left wondering, why? It wasn't just that Roman was gone. It was how he left. WrestleMania saw the biggest shock of the year. Cody Rhodes failed to finish his story, and Roman stood tall, clutching the undisputed Universal Championship yet again. But that victory didn't feel like a triumph. It felt like a fracture. The win came with interference, betrayals, and the kind of desperation that exposed the cracks inside the Bloodline. In the days that followed, the Bloodline began to unravel. Jimmy and Jey Uso could no longer hide their resentment. Solo Sikoa, once the quiet enforcer, began showing signs of rebellion. Paul Heyman looked rattled. And Roman, the tribal chief, retreated from the battlefield. Publicly, there was no explanation. WWE gave no storyline injury, no official leave. Roman didn't issue a statement. His Instagram went dark. Even the usual behind-the-scenes sources had little to offer, except one consistent note: Reigns was not injured, and he was not retired. He was watching. Waiting. That silence only added to the tension. Each week, Raw and SmackDown moved forward without him. Jey Uso stepped into the spotlight as a solo competitor. Cody Rhodes claimed the spotlight again, now feuding with Rollins and trying to earn another path toward the title. Gunther continued his iron reign. And the fans? They started to shift. The longer Roman was gone, the more the WWE Universe began asking, is the era of the tribal chief over? Notably, the Bloodline continued to collapse in Roman's absence. Jimmy Uso was taken off TV after a savage beatdown. Solo Sikoa vanished without a trace, reportedly disillusioned with Roman's leadership. Paul Heyman, long known as the loyal mouthpiece of the faction, grew quieter, more calculated, occasionally spotted backstage, but never attached to Roman again. And while the Bloodline disintegrated, another power started rising. Seth Rollins, who had been operating on the fringes of the title scene, began building momentum. Not as a solo showman, but as a general looking to lead. He attacked Jey Uso unprovoked. He began talking like a strategist, not a showboat. Something was brewing. Roman, still missing, became less of a champion and more of a shadow. He loomed over every promo, every match. Even when his name wasn't mentioned, his presence was felt. Every time a champion held up their belt, every time Cody talked about legacy, every time the bloodline was referenced, it all pointed back to the man who once ruled everything. So where was he? Some speculated he was watching closely, scouting the next phase of his evolution. Others believed he was biding time, waiting for the right moment to reclaim dominance. A few wondered if his silence was a strategy, to see who among his enemies would emerge, and who among his family would stay loyal. Then there was the personal angle. Roman Reigns is not just a character, he's a man with a family, a legacy, and something to prove. For 3 years, he carried the company on his shoulders. Through the pandemic era, the empty arenas, the return of live crowds, and the biggest main events, he was the constant. The tribal chief. The head of the table. The champion. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he needed distance from the chaos he helped create. Or maybe, he knew something we didn't. Because when he returned, he didn't do it for fanfare. He didn't come back to cheers. He didn't even come back to reclaim a spotlight. He returned for one reason: war. When Cody Rhodes saved Jey Uso from a ruthless assault, the crowd erupted. When Goldberg returned and flattened Gunther, the arena shook. But when Roman Reigns stepped back into a WWE ring, it felt different. It wasn't nostalgia. It wasn't spectacle. It was inevitable. He didn't smile. He didn't wear a new t-shirt. He didn't bring the belt. He brought intensity. He brought presence. He brought a stare that made it clear, his silence wasn't a retreat. It was preparation. And the first words he said? Not a thank you. Not a catchphrase. Not a tribal chant. He looked at Cody. He looked at Jey. And he said, "You think this is over?" Those 6 words hit harder than a Superman punch. Because they weren't a question. They were a promise. A warning. A declaration that this story isn't done. That the fall of the bloodline isn't the end, it's the beginning of something else. The Roman Reigns that returned wasn't the same man who left. This Roman looked colder. Sharper. More dangerous. The tribal chief persona wasn't abandoned, it had evolved. No entourage. No allies. Just him. And when Paul Heyman walked out later in the night, flanked by new power and standing beside Rollins, Roman didn't even flinch. He wasn't surprised. Because he had already moved past that chapter. The WWE Universe thought they'd seen the fall of the bloodline. But Roman sees it differently. He doesn't see collapse, he sees transformation. He's no longer trying to keep his family together. He's out to burn everything down and build something stronger. So what happened to Roman Reigns? He didn't lose control. He let go of it. He didn't disappear. He waited. He didn't fall. He calculated. And now that he's back, there are no distractions. No handlers. No buffer. Just a man who once ruled, and who's now ready to evolve, no matter who stands in his way. This next chapter isn't about titles. It's not even about family. It's about legacy. It's about power. It's about vengeance. Roman Reigns spent months in silence. But make no mistake, he never stopped watching. And now that he's returned, the real war begins. The bloodline used to be untouchable. They walked into every arena like kings. Roman Reigns at the center, Paul Heyman whispering strategy, the Usos bringing force, and Solo Sikoa as the looming threat. They weren't just champions, they were an empire. But every empire falls. The question is never if, but how. For the bloodline, it didn't happen with one match. It happened piece by piece, fracture by fracture, until the walls finally caved in. It started with trust. Or rather, the slow erosion of it. When Jey Uso walked out on Roman Reigns, it wasn't out of ambition. It was out of heartbreak. Reigns had weaponized his family for power, using guilt, loyalty, and manipulation to keep everyone in line. But even the strongest chains snap under enough pressure. Jey had always been the emotional core of the group. Torn between his brother, his cousin, and his own identity. At first, he submitted to Roman, embracing the right-hand man role. He took the beatings. He did the dirty work. He played the soldier. But over time, Jey's soul wore thin. His eyes stopped burning with loyalty and started flickering with doubt. He began questioning. Pushing back. Until finally, he walked away. When Jey left, the foundation cracked. Jimmy Uso, his twin, didn't follow. Not immediately. He tried to hold the line. To stay in Roman's favor. But loyalty can only stretch so far when your brother is suffering. And eventually, Jimmy snapped too, except instead of siding with Jey, he turned on both of them. That betrayal wasn't just a twist. It was a warning shot. Then came Solo. Solo Sikoa was the quiet enforcer, a storm Roman unleashed when words failed. He rarely spoke. He didn't need to. His presence was intimidation enough. But Solo was never meant to be a puppet. The more the bloodline fractured, the more Solo stepped out of the shadows. His attacks grew more violent, his defiance more visible. He was no longer following orders, he was sending messages. And when he disappeared from television, fans noticed. No kayfabe injury. No official announcement. Just gone. Behind the scenes, reports hinted that Solo had grown frustrated. In storyline terms, it fit perfectly. He wasn't part of the drama, he was done with it. Some believed he was regrouping. Others thought he was choosing a side. But whose? Meanwhile, Paul Heyman, the mind behind the machine, started unraveling. Once the most confident mouthpiece in WWE, Heyman grew hesitant. Nervous. Sometimes silent. His hands trembled during promos. His voice cracked. And most importantly, he stopped referring to Roman as the tribal chief. He simply called him Roman. That shift was subtle, but it said everything. Because the bloodline wasn't just a group. It was a belief system. A family identity. When Heyman let that language slip, it meant even he no longer believed in it. The implosion played out like a slow-motion car crash. No single blow caused the collapse, it was the accumulation of wounds. Matches lost. Promises broken. Backstage glances filled with doubt. And then, absence. Roman left. Jimmy got taken out. Solo vanished. Paul drifted. And Jey? He was left standing in the middle of the storm, bloodied and defiant. But the most heartbreaking part of the bloodline's fall wasn't the betrayal. It was the silence. No redemption arcs. No forgiveness. Just fading loyalty and unspoken anger. The bond that once held them together had become toxic. Jey realized it first. Jimmy resisted it. Solo responded with violence. And Roman? He denied it all until it collapsed in front of him. The fall of the bloodline wasn't just a storyline, it was a dismantling of legacy. The Samoan dynasty had long been a symbol of pride in wrestling history, from Alpha and Sika to The Rock. Roman had used that history as a weapon, crowning himself as the face of that heritage. But now, that legacy lay in pieces. Not because of defeat in the ring, but because of what happened between the ropes. And that's what made it so compelling. Because the bloodline wasn't built on wins, it was built on belief. Once that belief cracked, everything else followed. And no amount of championships could fix that. To fully understand how deep the divide went, you have to look at each member's descent. Jey Uso went from loyal right hand to rebel. At first, his defiance was quiet, hesitation during beatdowns, unspoken frustration. Then it exploded. His promos got more intense. He started speaking in his own voice, no longer echoing Roman's lines. When he finally superkicked Roman, it was more than an attack. It was a declaration of independence. Jimmy Uso's betrayal cut a different way. He didn't walk away, he swerved. Attacking both his brother and his cousin, he symbolized the lost soul of the group. He didn't stand for Roman, or against him. He was lashing out. Confused. Hurt. Torn between love and fear. His betrayal didn't look like strength. It looked like survival. Solo Sikoa was the wild card. He had always followed orders without question. But when the orders stopped making sense, Solo stopped obeying. Fans started to notice that his loyalty didn't extend beyond action. When the camera caught him hesitating before attacks, or looking away during speeches, it was clear, he was done being a pawn. And Paul Heyman, the man who built empires with Brock Lesnar, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns, watched it all fall apart. Slowly. Painfully. With no plan to stop it. Maybe he knew this collapse was coming. Maybe that's why he started grooming a new power team behind the scenes. Either way, Heyman's shift signaled something undeniable: the bloodline had died, and something more dangerous was rising from the ashes. Roman Reigns' absence didn't cause the fall. It revealed the truth: without him actively controlling the narrative, the group had no foundation. It had been held together by fear, loyalty, and manipulation. Without constant direction, it turned inward. Brothers became rivals. Silence replaced strategy. And loyalty turned into resentment. What's left now isn't a faction. It's wreckage. And that wreckage is dangerous. Because each member of the bloodline still carries a piece of what made them dominant. Jey still has the fire. Jimmy has the unpredictability. Solo has the raw power. Heyman has the mind. And Roman? He has the scars, and the motivation to rebuild. But not together. There will be no reunion. No forgiveness arc. The tribal war has begun, and now, the battlefield is wide open. Jey stands with Cody Rhodes. Roman stands alone, by choice. Solo is out there, watching. And Paul Heyman has turned his back on the family he helped build, aligning with new blood and new intentions. WWE has seen stables rise and fall. But the bloodline's implosion was different. It wasn't a betrayal, it was a breakup. A brutal, emotional, quiet breakdown of identity, legacy, and trust. And now, that broken family is scattered across the WWE landscape like pieces of a puzzle no one wants to solve. The dynasty is over. The division is real. And the war is just beginning. When you strip away the pyro, the promos, and the bright lights, WWE is still about one thing: survival. In that sense, no one's story cuts deeper right now than Jey Uso's. Once the right-hand man to Roman Reigns, Jey has gone from enforcer to exile. Outnumbered. Cornered. Abandoned by blood, betrayed by brother, and now hunted by a faction he never saw coming. This isn't just a wrestling angle. This is the emotional heart of the bloodline collapse. Jey Uso is the man caught in the middle of a war that started as family drama and turned into something much darker. Let's rewind to the moment it all turned. At one point, Jey was the most loyal soldier Roman Reigns had. He took beatings from Drew McIntyre, Daniel Bryan, and Kevin Owens, all to prove he belonged at the head of the table. He swallowed his pride. He silenced his conscience. He followed orders even when those orders meant hurting his own twin brother. Jey walked that line for years, carrying the burden of keeping the bloodline united, until it crushed him. He tried. God knows he tried. He tried to bring Jimmy into the fold. Tried to keep Solo in check. Tried to manage Paul Heyman's games. But the harder he worked to hold things together, the faster it all unraveled. Roman didn't appreciate it. Jimmy didn't trust him. Solo stopped listening. And Heyman? He stopped even pretending to care. Eventually, Jey had enough. The turning point came when Jey delivered a superkick to Roman's jaw in front of a stunned crowd. The pop was deafening. Not because it was shocking, fans had been waiting for it, but because it was cathartic. It wasn't about rebellion. It was about release. Jey was tired of being controlled, tired of being used, tired of fighting battles that only benefited someone else. That kick wasn't aimed at a champion, it was aimed at a manipulator. From that point on, Jey went solo. But solo in WWE is another word for target. Without the bloodline, Jey was exposed. No backup. No safety net. And no friends waiting to welcome him to the other side. Because to the locker room, he wasn't a hero. He was a former enforcer who helped Roman dominate the company for years. Trust doesn't come easy when your past is soaked in ambushes and betrayals. Still, he fought. Week after week, Jey showed up. Sometimes in backstage segments. Sometimes jumping into matches. Sometimes standing alone in the ring, facing down Rollins, Zayn, Owens, and anyone else who had a score to settle. He didn't run. He didn't ask for sympathy. He just fought. But no matter how hard he fought, the odds kept stacking. Then came Seth Rollins. Rollins wasn't interested in settling old scores. He wanted to make an example. He saw Jey not as a threat, but as a message. An open wound in the Bloodline saga that needed to be exploited. And he did just that, relentlessly. Attacking Jey in backstage ambushes. Costing him matches. Insulting him in promos. But what made Rollins different was the surgical nature of his violence. He wasn't emotional, he was strategic. Rollins knew Jey's greatest weakness wasn't physical. It was psychological. Loneliness. So Rollins isolated him. Challenged his legitimacy. Mocked his past. And when the time came, Rollins didn't just beat Jey down, he tried to finish him. That happened during the Raw main event, and it felt like the final chapter. Jey fought his heart out, landing super kicks, counters, and a thunderous ooso splash that nearly stole the match. But Rollins kept coming. Near the end, he delivered 2 curb stomps in a row, then grabbed a steel chair, ready to make it personal. The crowd went silent. Jey lay there, motionless. It looked like WWE was about to write him off for good. Then Cody Rhodes' music hit. It was a moment that flipped the entire narrative. Cody didn't owe Jey anything. In fact, they were practically strangers on screen. But something in Cody's code wouldn't let him watch another man fall alone. He rushed the ring, cleared it, and stood over Jey like a soldier guarding a fallen brother. In that moment, something clicked. It wasn't just a rescue. It was a transfer of trust. Cody extended a hand, and Jey, exhausted, bloodied, stunned, took it. It was the first time in months someone had stood beside Jey Uso not out of duty, but out of choice. And yet, the fight is far from over. Because even after Cody's rescue, Jey is still surrounded by enemies. He's still got no clear allies. The rest of the locker room remains wary. Rollins isn't done. Paul Heyman is building something monstrous. Roman has returned. And Solo Sikoa? No one knows where he is, but if he comes back, Jey is likely target number 1. There's also the question of redemption. Jey has done damage. He helped Roman crush people like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. He stood silent when others suffered. And that past doesn't disappear just because he's turned face. Redemption in WWE isn't a switch, it's a climb. One that's made harder when you have to fight with no corner, no manager, and no title opportunity in sight. But what makes Jey Uso's story powerful isn't just the betrayal. It's the resilience. He's not the flashiest superstar. He's not the loudest on the mic. But he's real. Every time he steps in the ring, you feel the weight he's carrying. He's trying to rewrite his story, not for glory, but for peace. And that's rare in this business. Jey's next steps are uncertain. He might align with Cody Rhodes and go after the new faction forming under Heyman. He might confront Solo, if Solo ever re-emerges. He might even challenge Roman again, this time as an equal rather than a pawn. But one thing is clear. Jey Uso isn't done. He's bruised. He's isolated. He's haunted by his own choices. But he's still standing. And in WWE, sometimes that's enough to start a war. Cody Rhodes didn't just return last night, he made a statement. Not with words. Not with a promo. Not even with a spotlight. He returned through action, running headfirst into chaos, and pulled someone out of it. It wasn't for a title. It wasn't for revenge. It was for something rarer in wrestling, principle. But to understand the weight of that moment, you have to rewind. When Cody lost to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, it crushed the WWE Universe. For over a year, his story had been the central thread, son of a legend, fighting to win the title his father never held. The promos were fire. The emotion was real. The build-up was immaculate. And then he lost. Not clean. Not definitively. Roman kept his title thanks to interference, as always. But Cody's momentum collapsed under the pressure of overbooking. The fans were stunned. The dream was dead, for now. After that, Cody went quiet. He kept working, yes. Still appearing on Raw, still delivering high-level matches. But something in his eyes shifted. The spark of destiny dimmed. He tried to rebuild, picking fights with heels like Dominic Mysterio and the Judgment Day, but the energy wasn't the same. Fans supported him, but the narrative weight had lifted. His story, once epic, now wandered. Eventually, Cody stepped back. WWE gave no formal reason for his absence, but it was clear, he was off-screen, recharging. In kayfabe, it made sense, after years of non-stop struggle, he had to recalibrate. Backstage reports suggested he was nursing minor injuries and waiting for a meaningful angle to return to. That moment came last night. And he didn't return for the spotlight. He didn't return for a rematch with Roman. He returned when someone needed help. As Seth Rollins brutalized Jey Uso in the main event, steel chair in hand, Cody's theme hit like a war cry. He didn't walk the ramp. He didn't high-five fans. He didn't pose. He ran. Straight into the ring. Straight into danger. He threw fists like a man possessed, knocking Rollins off balance, forcing him to retreat. No mic drop. No speech. Just presence. And the crowd exploded. Because it wasn't just Cody saving a wrestler, it was Cody choosing a side. That choice matters. Because the last time we saw Cody directly involved in Bloodline business, it was personal. Roman robbed him of a WrestleMania moment. Solo Sikoa cost him the match. Paul Heyman mocked his family. Jey Uso watched from the sidelines. And yet, when the time came, Cody didn't hesitate to help Jey. That's who Cody Rhodes is now. Not just a contender. Not just the son of Dusty Rhodes. He's a moral compass in a company spinning out of control. A man who doesn't just chase belts, he defends honor. The symbolism of that rescue runs deep. Jey Uso represents the gray area. Once an enemy. Now a man trying to change. And Cody, despite every reason to turn his back, stood beside him. That's not typical WWE booking. That's personal storytelling. The American Nightmare came back not to reclaim his own path, but to help someone else find theirs. But make no mistake, Cody is not stepping into the background. This move signals a new chapter. One where Cody isn't just chasing Roman, but standing against a rising tide of darkness. Because in that same episode, Paul Heyman unveiled a faction that could define WWE for years to come: Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, all aligned under Heyman's guidance. Cody sees what's coming. He understands that power is shifting. Roman is returning. Heyman is reorganizing. And the chaos is no longer isolated, it's spreading. So Cody isn't just back to fight. He's back to lead. His return didn't need a title match. It didn't need a blood feud. It needed purpose. And Cody found that in helping Jey. But don't be fooled into thinking this is a side mission. Cody Rhodes is always 3 steps ahead. He knows that Jey's redemption helps weaken Roman. He knows that standing against Rollins plants seeds for a deeper rivalry. And he knows that in helping others, he strengthens his own path. The fans saw it immediately. When Cody extended his hand to Jey, there was hesitation. Not from the audience, from Jey. Because even he knew the history. Even he knew what that gesture meant. Taking Cody's hand wasn't just about survival, it was about trust. And he took it. The crowd roared. The cameras caught it. Cody nodded once. That was it. No celebration. No victory lap. Just 2 men who had been broken by the same system, standing together for the first time. Now the question becomes, what's next? Because Cody Rhodes doesn't return without a plan. He saw the rise of a new power. He saw Roman Reigns walk down that ramp again. He heard the line, the bloodline doesn't die. It evolves. And he knows that to stop what's coming, he can't do it alone. Helping Jey was step 1. Forming alliances may be step 2. Cody's road to the championship may still be winding, but now it's fueled by something even more potent than revenge, righteousness. And for a locker room full of egos, betrayals, and unchecked ambition, Cody Rhodes is now the only man standing up for principle. This is how legends are forged. Not with pyro. Not with titles. But with choices. Cody made his choice last night. Now the rest of the roster has to decide where they stand. WWE fans are used to surprises. They've seen legends return, betrayals unfold, and alliances explode all in the blink of an eye. But there are moments, rare ones, that stop time. Moments that pull every eye to the ring and remind everyone why they watch this chaotic spectacle in the first place. Last night, Raw delivered one of those moments. It wasn't planned. It wasn't teased. And it didn't need a build-up. It was raw, spontaneous, emotional. Cody Rhodes saving Jey Uso wasn't just an interruption. It was a collision course moment. One that reset the direction of WWE's main event scene in seconds. Here's what made it hit so hard. The match between Jey Uso and Seth Rollins was already brutal. Not technically beautiful. Not about ring psychology. Just punishment. Seth wasn't looking for a clean win, he was sending a message. Jey, battered and emotionally broken from months of being rejected by his family, fought like a man with no other choice. And the fans? They felt every strike. It started fast. Rollins controlled the pace, using his speed, agility, and sadistic edge. Jey tried to mount comebacks, and every time he did, the crowd surged with hope. But Rollins wouldn't let him breathe. He stomped Jey's chest into the mat. He hit high knees to the temple. And when that wasn't enough, he went outside the ring and grabbed a steel chair. No disqualification had been announced. This wasn't an official no-holds-barred match. But Rollins didn't care. He slid the chair into the ring like he owned the rules. The referee hesitated, unsure whether to call for a disqualification or let it play out. Rollins didn't wait for a ruling. He placed the chair under Jey's head and backed into the corner. The crowd stood. Everyone knew what was coming. The stomp. A steel chair-assisted curb stomp, a move designed not just to hurt, but to end careers. Rollins taunted the crowd. He shouted something no one could quite hear over the boos. He bounced on his heels. And then it happened. The lights dropped for half a second. And the music hit. Wrestling has more than one royal family. Cody Rhodes. The pop wasn't a cheer, it was an eruption. Fans didn't expect it. There'd been no rumor. No segment set up earlier in the night. It was a genuine, honest-to-God surprise. The kind WWE rarely delivers these days. And Cody didn't walk. He sprinted. Down the ramp, full speed, with intensity in his eyes that hadn't been there since WrestleMania. This wasn't showboating. This was purpose. He hit the ring and exploded. 1 punch. 2. He clotheslined Rollins over the top rope, then dove through the ropes for a suicide dive that sent both men crashing to the floor. The fans chanted his name. And inside the ring, Jey Uso stirred. Broken. Exhausted. But alive. Cody slid back in and stood over him. The camera caught his expression. Part fury, part relief, part disbelief at what he'd just interrupted. He knelt down, extended a hand. For a moment, Jey didn't move. This wasn't just a physical lift, it was symbolic. Cody had no reason to trust Jey. The last time these two shared a storyline, Jey was still one of Roman's soldiers. He was part of the group that cost Cody everything. But Cody didn't hesitate. And Jey took the hand. That image, Cody helping Jey to his feet, was more powerful than a championship celebration. It represented something WWE rarely gets right: character evolution. Not redemption. Not instant forgiveness. Just two men with bruised pasts deciding, in real time, to stand together. It was more than just a save. It was a new beginning. The reaction backstage, according to multiple reports, was electric. Even the locker room didn't know Cody was returning that night. It had been kept under wraps. Some agents were reportedly only informed minutes before the segment. That added layer of authenticity bled through the screen. It felt unscripted. Real. The save also raises major questions. Why now? Why Jey? Why interfere in a match that wasn't his fight? The answer may be simpler than fans think. Cody saw himself in Jey Uso. Alone. Cornered. Betrayed by the system. Struggling to fight back without turning bitter. It was everything Cody had been through the past year, only now playing out in Jey's story. So he didn't run out to settle a feud. He ran out because he couldn't not do it. That's the kind of motivation that builds legends. In kayfabe terms, the save also shifts the main event landscape. With Roman back, Goldberg targeting Gunther, and Heyman building a new faction, Raw is about to get dangerous. Cody aligning with Jey gives both men an anchor, a way to survive the chaos together. It also paints a target on their backs. Rollins isn't going to forget the embarrassment. Heyman is watching everything. And Roman Reigns? He won't ignore the symbolism of Cody standing beside a defector. The question now isn't just where this alliance goes, it's how long it lasts. Because this is WWE. Trust never lasts forever. Partnerships turn fast. Loyalty is temporary. But if Cody and Jey can hold the line, even for a little while, they may shift the power balance in ways no one expects. Last night's save wasn't just a rescue. It was the moment that reminded the WWE Universe why these stories matter. Not because of belts. Not because of stipulations. But because sometimes, when the moment calls for it, someone does the right thing. And in a company full of opportunists, that kind of move shakes the entire arena. For nearly 100 days, Roman Reigns said nothing. No interviews. No backstage appearances. Not a single promo. It wasn't just a break, it was silence. A calculated, deliberate silence from the most dominant figure WWE has seen in over a decade. And then, without warning, the silence shattered. Last night, as the dust settled from Cody Rhodes' shocking rescue of Jey Uso, the lights dropped again. The fans barely had time to exhale. The arena was already buzzing, still reeling from the last segment. And then it hit. Roman Reigns' music. There are very few things in WWE that create true electricity. Roman's entrance is one of them. It doesn't just signal a return. It changes the energy in the room. It announces control. It announces danger. This was no different. The instant the beat dropped, the crowd responded with a mix of gasps, cheers, and chants. Some stood. Some screamed. Others just stared. For 3 months, the tribal chief had disappeared. Now, he was walking down the ramp, slow and steady, with purpose in every step. No Bloodline at his side. No Paul Heyman. No Solo. No Usos. Just Roman. Alone. That image alone was enough to tell the story. The empire had crumbled. The king had returned to find his throne in ruins. He didn't smile. He didn't acknowledge the crowd. His eyes were locked on the ring, where Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso stood side by side, still recovering from the chaos moments before. Roman slid into the ring. The air was thick. The tension unbearable. No music now. No commentary. Just silence, and Roman's stare. He didn't pace. He didn't rush. He just stood still, absorbing the moment. Then he asked for a microphone. And spoke the first words we've heard in over 3 months. You think this is over? 6 words. 6 words that rewrote the tone of the entire show. He turned his head. Looked directly at Cody. Then at Jey. He took a breath. The bloodline doesn't die. It evolves. That's all he said. No long speech. No catchphrases. Just a declaration. But those words hit harder than any finisher. Because in those 2 sentences, Roman Reigns did something he's never done before. He acknowledged the collapse, and promised a resurrection. This wasn't the arrogant champion who mocked his enemies. This wasn't the puppet master behind Heyman's schemes. This was Roman as a wounded lion, still dangerous, still proud, but fully aware that the landscape around him had shifted. He didn't rant about betrayal. He didn't shout about titles. He didn't even mention the faction by name. He simply made it clear, the bloodline isn't gone. It's changing. And that's even more dangerous. Because what comes after a fall isn't always weakness, it can be reinvention. The moment Roman finished speaking, he dropped the mic and stared again at Cody and Jey. Cody stared back, jaw clenched. Jey looked almost heartbroken, caught between rage and regret. Roman nodded once. And walked out. He didn't attack. He didn't even raise his voice. Because he didn't need to. His presence was enough. Now let's break down what this really means. Roman Reigns just reclaimed the narrative. For months, the bloodline collapse has been told through the lens of the Usos, Solo, and Cody. Roman was absent, silent, and by extension, reduced. The WWE Universe speculated that his time had passed. That his grip on the company had finally slipped. But last night proved otherwise. Roman never lost control. He simply paused. And in that pause, he let everyone else make their moves. Now, he's seen the full chessboard. Jey turned. Jimmy imploded. Solo disappeared. Heyman moved on. And Cody stepped into the power vacuum. Roman walked out last night not to reclaim his spot, but to redefine it. The phrase, the bloodline evolves, isn't just a metaphor. It's a threat. It means Roman sees the collapse not as defeat, but as opportunity. Think about that. While Cody is trying to build trust and Jey is seeking redemption, Roman is reloading. He's assessing the battlefield. He's waiting for the right pieces. And he will not make the same mistake twice. This version of Roman is more dangerous than ever. Not because he has backup, but because he has none. There's no one left to hold him back. No one to challenge his decisions. No one to question his plans. He's stripped down. Raw. Focused. That stare last night told the story. He looked at Cody not with hate, but with understanding. He sees Cody as the biggest obstacle. The man who didn't just try to take his title, but who is now trying to reshape the WWE world in his image. Roman isn't going to let that happen. Not out of pride, but out of survival. Let's be clear, Roman Reigns is not here to play defense. He's here to build something new. Something stronger. Something more ruthless. He said it himself, the bloodline evolves. What that evolution looks like is still unclear. Will he recruit new allies? Will Solo return and realign? Will Roman target Cody directly, or start by dismantling the weak links? One thing is certain, the silence is over. Roman has stepped back into the arena. He sees everything. He remembers everything. And now, he's acting. The WWE Universe wanted answers. They got them, just not the ones they expected. Roman's not apologizing. He's not reflecting. He's not grieving the bloodline. He's rebuilding it. And that's the scariest version of Roman Reigns we've ever seen. In wrestling, words are weapons. A well-delivered promo can do more damage than a steel chair. It can define a rivalry, shift momentum, even alter careers. Roman Reigns has always understood that. He doesn't waste words. He drops them like hammers, one at a time, letting each one echo. Last night, he said only 2 sentences, but those 2 sentences said everything. You think this is over? The bloodline doesn't die. It evolves. To a casual fan, they might sound like generic threats. But if you've been watching WWE for the last 3 years, you know better. Those words aren't just lines. They're a manifesto. A warning. A signal that Roman's mind is 2 steps ahead of everyone else. Let's start with the first question, you think this is over? At face value, it sounds like a comeback line. But dig deeper. Roman is talking to everyone at once. To Jey Uso, who thought leaving the bloodline meant freedom. To Cody Rhodes, who thought saving Jey ended the chaos. To Seth Rollins, who thought Roman was no longer a player in this game. But most of all, he's talking to the fans. Because fans have been celebrating the bloodline's collapse. They've watched Jimmy betray Roman, Jey rebel, Solo disappear, Heyman walk away, and they've declared the era over. Done. Finished. Roman disagrees. That one line is a slap in the face to the idea that power crumbles simply because people turn on you. Roman doesn't see betrayal as an ending. He sees it as a phase. A necessary purge. A test of strength. The weak are gone. Now, only the loyal, or the dangerous, remain. The second sentence cuts even deeper. The bloodline doesn't die. It evolves. In 6 words, Roman reframes the entire story. For the last year, the bloodline saga has been about decay. Cracks forming. Tensions boiling over. The group that once moved as one started splintering under the weight of pressure and paranoia. Jey couldn't take the manipulation. Jimmy couldn't decide what side he was on. Solo grew silent. And Heyman? He stopped speaking altogether. But Roman's not mourning the collapse. He's adapting. That's what evolution is. It's not survival of the strongest, it's survival of the most adaptable. Roman has watched every move from the shadows. He's seen Cody gain allies. He's seen Seth form a faction. He's seen Gunther dominate, Goldberg return, and Heyman rebuild power around younger, hungrier talent. Roman knows the board is changing. And he's not retreating. He's repositioning. He's not trying to resurrect the old bloodline. He's planning a new one. More selective, more ruthless, and possibly more dangerous. Think about the historical context. When Roman first built the bloodline, it was based on family. On blood. That's what made it powerful and fragile. Emotional bonds are strong until they break. And when they do, they take everything down with them. Now, Roman's tone has shifted. There's no more "we're family" language. No more tribal speeches. No more ceremonial acknowledgements. He's not leading a family anymore. He's building a kingdom. And kingdoms aren't built on love. They're built on loyalty and fear. The question is, who joins him now? Solo Sikoa's name immediately comes to mind. He's been missing from WWE TV, which makes him more unpredictable. He could return and stand with Roman, especially if Roman promises him the future. Not as an enforcer, but as a successor. Then there's the dark possibility that Roman doesn't want allies at all. What if the evolution of the bloodline isn't a team, but a mindset? A philosophy of dominance. Of fear over friendship. Of control over compassion. That would explain why Roman didn't flinch when Paul Heyman reappeared later, flanked by Rollins, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed. Roman didn't challenge Heyman. He didn't call him out. Because he doesn't see that as a betrayal. He sees it as proof. Heyman left because he thought Roman was done. Now Roman gets to prove him wrong. The most dangerous version of Roman Reigns isn't the one surrounded by allies. It's the one who doesn't need them. The one who believes his presence alone is enough to shift the balance of power. And right now, that might be true. Cody Rhodes may have saved Jey Uso, but he also stepped directly into Roman's crosshairs. Jey may have escaped the bloodline, but the shadow still looms over him. And the rest of the roster? They're all watching now, wondering what Roman meant by evolves. Because when someone like Roman evolves, it's not just a character change. It's a reset. A new mission. A more dangerous mission. Roman's words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. They were surgical. Chosen. Placed like landmines in a battlefield that's only beginning to erupt. And if history has taught us anything, it's this: when Roman Reigns speaks, the story bends around him.